Hi, everybody. I'm Cliff. This is Life with Multiple Sclerosis, or as I like to call it, Life with MS. We are a community of people with MS that are sharing information, secrets, and life hacks that we've learned about MS and living with MS. And if you find this potentially important, well, click that subscribe and like below because I think you're going to love this. This next hack is something I discovered just about 2 weeks ago, and I promised you all I would keep you updated, and the results have been pretty interesting. Now, I am not a doctor, I'm not a researcher, I am a bald dude on YouTube talking about my experience with MS. So these opinions are my own, and this is not medical advice in any way, shape, or form. In a previous episode, I talked about my exploration into the deep, complex world of anti-inflammatory superfoods. The one that I found by accident was the common tart cherry or the sweet cherry, any kind of cherry. These ones are California cherries, but from my own experience, I went to a cherry farm in Virginia last week and got fresh cherries right off the tree and had similar results. Now, the story goes that I went with my son and my wife to go pick cherries. I'm not a big cherry fan. I've never eaten a bunch of cherries in my whole life, but it was kind of warm out that day and my MS was creeping up on me. And I was just picking cherries off the trees and just eating them. And I ate probably about 2 handfuls. And what I noticed later on that afternoon is I was feeling really good for having a very busy morning. Normally, I would be wiped out from my multiple sclerosis fatigue, but that wasn't happening. I had just really good, constant energy, not like the shaky Adderall energy or the shaky caffeine feeling, but just sustainable energy. And I felt dare I say it, kind of normal. And I thought, wow, maybe there's something to these cherries. So then I went and I did a little bit of research, and it turns out cherries are a superfood for anti-inflammation. And we know multiple sclerosis is a great inflammatory disease for, well, being inflamed. And while inflammation is great for things like bee stings and other things where you've got to attack and isolate areas when it's in your body all day long for years on end, it's really not great and can create a lot of problems. And this is what MS does. It likes to inflame things. So now back to the story. So after this, I started eating cherries every day, not like gobs and gobs, like I would just get a handful and I'd eat them at lunch or whatever. And I did notice a pretty decent boost in energy. But not until this weekend did I really see it come to fruition. And this is bonkers because it's way out of character for me. Not the bonkers part. That's pretty normal if you watch my show. You're going to love this though, I promise. Now he's not talking to me. You're just another nerdy name. Focus and die. Oh, gentlemen, here comes Candy. Now she's wearing a 5-pound, 11-pack, 100% cotton adjustable cool vest. So yesterday we were putting in a fence around our property, and I like to do all the manual work myself, and my wife and my kid were out there and we were all just getting into it. And if you've ever done fence work or even seen it done, you know it's just a lot of work. So we went in the morning to get supplies from the store, and by the time we got back from the store around 11 a.m., I was pretty fatigued. I wasn't feeling great. I thought I'll just go lay down for a little while, and I had some lunch and I ate a bowl full of cherries. And what I've noticed over the last week, if I rest a little bit and I eat those cherries, my energy just slowly comes up. And I don't know if it's related to the cherries or not, but definitely something has been different in the last week. And cherries is really the only thing that I've changed in my diet and in my routine. So long story short, we ended up putting in this fence. And yesterday I walked 18,000 steps. 18,000 steps on a 75-degree day. That is unheard of for me. I'm maybe good for 13,000, maybe 11,000 on a 75-degree day. Heat just kills me. Anything over 70 degrees is just really bad. Now, keep in mind, where we were installing the fence was all shaded. We have big oak trees in the backyard. We went from 9 a.m. and I took little intermittent breaks, like little rest breaks, until almost 6 p.m., constantly on our feet and just doing this thing. And I'm 48 years old. I think that's a lot of work for anybody my age, but especially with the MS, it's just not something that I usually do or can do. But I was feeling good. I had good sustained energy. And it got me thinking and wondering, does the effect of these cherries actually happen instantly? Because in the research reports that I cited in my earlier vlogs, the research was tested on athletes with intake consistent over 2 weeks, and what they noticed was a significant reduction in inflammatory markers in the blood. However, what I wanted to know was, is this something that you can do the day of and actually feel the effects of? Because I think I am. And I dug into the research last night, and the results say yes. And we're going to talk about that today because this has kind of been a little bit of a game changer for me. Like the fact I even have the energy to do this vlog today at this level of detail is mind blowing to me. 18,000 steps yesterday would have normally just wiped me out today, and I feel really good. So let's dive into this research and see what the studies say about inflammation. Now, mind you, none of this is related specifically to multiple sclerosis because, as I said in the vlogs before, there is no conclusive evidence that this kind of superfruit, like a cherry, will help reduce the inflammation in MS. It's only really been tested on athletes and basic populations, people elderly and stuff like that. Nothing specific to multiple sclerosis. What I'm telling you right now is just my subjective experience, and that is certainly not a scientific process in any way, shape, or form. But let's look at the research. It is more focused on how athletes dealt with inflammation and what the researchers observed in a more controlled clinical approach. So just some quick terminology before we dive into this. Anthocyanins and polyphenols, those are the elements within the superfruits that help reduce inflammation. And they can be found in things like veggies, teas, fruits, things like that. But there are very high concentrations of them in things like cherries, things with fruits that have a dark color to them. In a playful way, they're probably best described as the peacekeepers of the inflammation party in the body. When the music turns up too loud, they call the cops. The cops show up and just turn the music down a little bit on that inflammation party. So I think the big question is how long do we have to wait for them to call the cops before the music is turned down in the inflammation party? And that's what we're going to dive into right now. And some of these studies have shown that taking anthocyanins, like those from black currant extract, about an hour before exercise can lead to a measurable reduction in inflammatory markers like TNF alpha, which I guess is super fancy marker or something, just a couple of hours after you're done sweating. That's pretty quick. It's like these compounds see an inflammation party starting and they rush in to say, hey, we're not going to do that right now. And if we are, we're just going to keep it at a very limited size. And while I'm not a fan of people crashing a party, when they get out of control, we need some help. Let's be honest. Okay, so we know they're doing something, but how do they work so fast? And from what I could interpret, basically these things go out looking for those inflammation-causing free radicals, and they don't just crush them, they kind of retrain them, which is weird. They're like Caesar the dog whisperer for like cell biology. And from what I could gather from these studies, it seems like the energy is more stable throughout the day because of the way it's crushing the inflammation than having a quick hit, like something Adderall would give you or caffeine. But they also mentioned more stubborn inflammation, like the kind that's the deadbeat house guest that just won't go away, but you can't necessarily kick out because they're family. Yeah, it's complicated. And for that, the studies suggest basically a more constant intake of these types of fruits that have polyphenols or anthocyanins in them, noting days, weeks, and even months. And of course, this again is in an athletic training context. It's not in MS. And I'm going to read this one little bit that I found word for word because I don't want to misinterpret anything or lose anything in context. Studies where folks took anthocyanin supplements, often around 320 milligrams daily, saw significant reductions in systemic inflammation markers like C-reactive protein, CRP, after about 4 weeks. And sometimes benefits continued to build over 12 weeks or longer. One study even showed that after 5 weeks of daily black currant extract, not only was the immediate post-exercise inflammation better managed, but the body actually started producing more of an anti-inflammatory good guy called IL-10. I talked about IL-10 in my last episode, and that didn't happen on a single dose of these anthocyanins. So that is basically your body learning and adapting. Awesome. But the science behind this is, of course, a little more complex. I mean, humans are complex. We have different environments. We have different gut microbes. We have different food intake. There's just so many variables. It's really hard to track everything down to see what will work. And these metabolites that assist basically will be impacted by those other variables. So not everybody's going to have the same results. One of the conclusions these studies seem to draw is that over time, by continuing these regimens, you're training your body to basically deal with these pro-inflammatory components in a totally different way and reducing them. And in some cases, changing those pro-inflammatory components to assist instead of harm. And this is related to those colorful foods. And I found that information on the NCBI website titled Polyphenols and Human Health, the Role of Bioavailability. This is a really interesting read. If you're nerdy like me, I really get into this stuff. There's also nice conclusions and summaries in this in a standard format of a study. So I definitely recommend that if you're curious about this, Go get the facts. See what these people have done. This is just cool. And on that note, some of that information is also in this research study that I found on NCBI as well. And it is titled Anthocyanins, a comprehensive review of chemical properties and the health effects on cardiovascular and neurodegenerative diseases. Hello, neurodegenerative diseases. That's us. We're a bunch of neurodegenerates or something. All of these will be linked below for your review. So now I know if I want to bask in a bathtub full of cherries, is it going to work for me? Yeah, but will it work for you? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a researcher. I'm just a bald dude on YouTube doing research. But in the research, if I'm reading it right, seems to basically suggest that the exact timing of these compounds and how they'll work for each person will vary greatly and is definitely a personal journey. And in the studies, the outcomes depended on the dosing as well as the type of polyphenol. As it did note, they're not all created equal and they can all be absorbed in a different way. And that also is affected by your genetics and your microbiome. So in my non-scientific conclusion, but in agreement with a lot of studies I read, it looks like there's something to the anthocyanins and polyphenols and a quick anti-inflammation break or vacation, but also there might be some long-term effects that are beneficial as well. That is just amazing. If you're curious about looking more into this, talk to your doctor. Like I said, there's no direct evidence that I could find it has any effect on multiple sclerosis. I'm just telling you from my experience, I feel better. And if I find something I feel like is helping me, I'm definitely going to always share it with you out there. And lastly, there's one thing here that's quoted I want to read word for word, and it says, "Don't expect one superfood salad to be an overnight miracle cure. But incorporating a wide variety of vibrant polyphenol-rich foods into your diet regularly is a fantastic strategy for both rapid support and long-term inflammation balance. It's about building a resilient, less inflamed person, one colorful bite at a time." I think that's a pretty good way of saying it. That's awesome. So that's it for now. That's an update on my very cherry discovery, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. I am just floored by what I was able to do yesterday. And of course, it's MS. It could be completely unrelated to what I'm eating, and tomorrow I could feel like total crap. Who knows? But I'm going with it right now. I know some of you out there have decided you're going to actually try a couple of cherries here and there. Have you had any outcomes yet that you'd like to share in the comments below? And in general, what's your favorite superfood that helps with your MS, or at least you think helps with the MS? I would be willing to try other things too and dig into the research on those. I'm Cliff. This is Life with MS, and have a great week.